Fever. Welcome to Whitelock Fever Live. And you know what they do on YouTube? They point to the bottom of the screen and they say like and subscribe. And if you're watching now, you can't see anything there. I'll edit it in later. We've got a great guest from the mighty Hard-ons. It's Ray. Ray, how are you?
Hello, Steve. Good to talk to you.
Yeah. Where are you? You in the storage room at Utopia? Where are you?
No, I'm in my office, and this is where I do interviews, and this is my office. Yeah, so I've got my turntable behind me and stuff. These are my 7-inch records that I like playing sometimes when I'm doing work and stuff. Yeah, so I'm in my office.
You're hiding all the gold records in. They're below. They're under the table or something. You're too shy.
No, that not no Hard-ons records have ever gone gold. They've gone pewter.
Now, I wanted, because we're talking about, I mentioned record stores, and the cover of the album, which I will also edit in later, which is out on the 2nd of June, I think, Ripper 23. It's obviously a homage. I always used to say homage. I don't know how you say it properly, to 1970s and 1980s Aussie compilation albums. It's absolutely brilliant. Why were those? You worked in a record store, why were those compilations unique to Australia? Why were they so big in Oz? Was it just a licensing thing, or?
No, I think it's budget issues. Not everyone has the money to go and buy lots and lots of records, but you know, like a compilation record like that was pretty cheap for a lot of songs, and it makes sense because a lot of people just don't ever play the B-sides of anything. They just like songs that they hear on radio, and they go, oh, okay, I'll have one of that, and that's what they want. They just want kind of like the big hits that they hear on the radio, and so those compilation albums were like really cheap gateways to a lot of young people, you know, especially on cassette, from my memory, and they actually really reflect the Australian society, you know, like a dog's breakfast of a record, you know, like where Disco Duck is right next to Thin Lizzy doing Rosalie, you know, or you've got Let's Stick Together right next to Silver Studs doing Happy Days or something like that, you know. So like Rural Dog's Breakfast, which is what the Australian society was turning out to be, you know, like with all the immigrants and whatnot, and that's why we picked Ripper 23 as some kind of a loving tribute, because not because of the sexist cover, but because of the strength of the Hard-ons has always been like a variety of sound, and that's reflected in a lot of Hard-ons fans saying, oh, we only like the pop stuff, or some people saying we only like the double kick thrash metal stuff. I wish you would stop playing that rubbish pop stuff, you know, we hate it when you go pop. So, you know, we do have a very wide variety of sound, and all of us in the Hard-ons love classic rock. I mean, we just love classic rock, and you know, bands like funny enough, ELO, Boston, Styx, Yes, Rush, we all love those bands. So and a lot of those classic rock sounds like Ted Nugent, Thin Lizzy, it's from the 70s. So we're just kind of pushing the 70s motif a little bit towards the fans' way.
Yeah.
Does that make sense, Steve?
Yeah, it does. No, it does make sense. And I used to get all those records too. And we used to, I remember 1980, the music and Full Bore and all those. And I kind of think maybe you maybe had it in your head for a while to, let's do that one day, and you just find, you know, you finally got around to it, or was it like a sort of, you know, recent sort of brainstorm to do that cover? You know?
No. It was just it was a one in a million fluke when we were at band practice. So it's just I just came up with it it was like a bolt out of the blue, and I thought it was a great idea.
And the other thing I can point to when I edit the video is I can point to a link to the first single. And that's like a Partridge Family thing with your faces superimposed on. Well, what's the story with that as well? That's pretty genius.
Well, we wanted to do something different. So, for example, the Hard-ons have always had like goofy imagery as the front cover of any record and stuff. Like normally something really ridiculously childish and funny. I personally, because I do all the artwork for the band, I just wanted to do something really different because, you know, having someone like Tim Rogers as lead singer in the band, I read a review somewhere where they said the Hard-ons have crossed the Rubicon, which, you know, kind of makes sense. There's no kind of going back for us now. We're evolving, and we just want to do something different. And that was the main reason to do something different. You know, I mean, the moment you're born, you're evolving, right? You're growing up and you're changing. Your body changes, and you know, part of me thinks that an artistic band, a musical band, should do the same in a way. Unless you're AC/DC, then you don't change.
Has Tim bought, as far as you can see, has Tim bought a lot of fans with him? Like, because I mean, we just saw overnight, yesterday your time, with Dave Gleeson leaving the Angels, you know, and some people said, "Oh, that's huge news. It's even bigger news that he's in the Angels. I didn't even know he's in the Angels to start with, you know." But you know, when you have those kind of like marriages, I guess some people, it gives you new fans, but also maybe some people, they just can't get used to someone who's already well known joining the band. You know what I mean?
That's exactly right. I think the shock that a lot of people showed when we announced that Tim was joining the band was really uncalled for. It's because I guess he had his own profile and you know, inertia as far as the music industry goes. A lot of people know who he is, and a lot of people have an opinion of Tim, and it's not always favourable. A lot of people find him not suitable for the Hard-ons, and I would say it's because a lot of people don't have the imagination to hear what I heard when I asked them to join the band. But it's not really their job to have imagination to pick a lead singer for us. So that's my job, and that's the other guys in the band's job. So, but we think the proof is in the pudding as far as the music is concerned. I just had to strip away Tim's personal profile, his work with UMI, all that kind of stuff away, and just grab onto just the real basic kernel of his vocal ability and my friendship with him over the years, and go, is this going to work or not? You know, based on our friendship and the ability to get along with somebody, and two, his vocal ability and nothing else. And I thought, well, that's going to work for sure. So I was able to strip away anything like that. And then, of course, the fact that he's so busy with other things and all that kind of stuff that came later. It's like, okay, we'll have to now try and shoehorn our career into his career and vice versa, that kind of thing. But that came a bit later. But I don't even know what the original question was.
I was just talking about fans' reactions. But there's one song on the new album when, as I said, I only had one opportunity to listen to. I think it's called "Going It Alone." It's got that sweetness, that sort of UMI sweetness to it. But I mean, is like, are you conscious of, you know, not sounding like UMI, or or because you're so diverse? I mean, like you said, you could play pop, you could play hard rock, you could play million miles an hour punk. So it's not like Dave Gleeson joining the Angels. It's a bit different, you know what I mean? Because you're quite a diverse sort of sounding sort of band anyway. So is there territory that you try to stay away from because of that?
No, absolutely, yeah, absolutely not. We try and rhythmically speaking, in terms of rhythm guitar, bass, and drums, it's still the same. So you know, what defines music, a hell of a lot of it is, a huge percentage of it is rhythm. And rhythmically speaking, we're just doing stuff that we were always going to do anyway. But with Tim, his vocal approach is quite different to the original Hard-on singing. So we took cues from bands like the Saints, the Damned, their first couple of albums, the Ramones. If you hear some of those records, you hear punk singing, melodic punk singing, and a lot of times one person will sing the melody line and double track it. And when you double track something, it means that the singing is quite rigid, and there's a way the lead singer like Joey Ramone or Dave from The Damned, that the way he sings is quite rigid, so he's able to put another vocal line on top. Now, Tim doesn't always sing like that. He sings more soulfully, so he will hold the note before going into the verse and that kind of stuff. And there are bits where he's breathy, you can hear him breathe and that kind of stuff. So his vocal approach is more akin to someone like, I don't know, Steve Marriott from the Small Faces, or you hear Steve Winwood when he was with Spencer Davis Group singing like that. Like bands from the 60s that are soulful, like The Move and things like that. A soulful approach that has roots in things like Rod Stewart or something like that. I don't know if I'm making sense, but they're not necessarily similar to what the Hard-ons singing was, which was originally a pretty rigid punk style, which still works on a melodic level. But Tim is a completely new a kettle of fish in terms of vocal approach and ability. Nobody in the Hard-ons could ever sing like him. So we thought, well, play to his strengths. And the whole idea with having different people in the Hard-ons, that we've all got real different strengths, and it's certainly a band where we really push the strength of each individual band members and try and get maximum value out of them. So the way I play bass, the way Blackie plays guitar and his songwriting, the way our drummer Murray drums, and Tim, the way he sings, we think just bring the best of our ability to the fore, whatever that may be, and try and see if there's chemistry involved. And I think there certainly is. And that's why I think the band sounds quite different now, because of Tim's vocal approach is quite different to what we originally had done for the last 35 or so years before Tim joined the band. But I think it's a new place that we're going to, which we're really, really enjoying, because last thing the Hard-ons want is like a punk rock Groundhog Day where we're playing the same kind of music over and over again.
You mentioned last time that about crossing the Rubicon, which with Tim joining the band. What does crossing the Rubicon look like for the Hard-ons? Does it mean you spend more time overseas? Does it mean you're playing bigger rooms? Does it mean you're more present in the media? Does it mean your sort of celebrity fans stand up for you more and talk about you more? What does it mean going forward?
I think it means more than ever, more than we've ever been before. Be really fearless musically and creatively, and not hold back because of any sort of pressure to be in the Hard-ons, and just do the music that we have gut feelings about, and not be worried about it. So that's what I think it means to cross the Rubicon, not to look back and fixate on what was successful for us before, but maybe have a little bit more reach and ambition, and have a look at what we can actually possibly do next time around. And certainly when Tim first joined the band, people were in shock, and they were like, "What? This is going to be rubbish." But then they heard the record and they saw us live, and they went, "Wow, this is working really well." So we want those things to happen continuously in the future, if you know what I mean, and not to forever dwell on the past and fixate on the past, because I think there's a lot of that, and I think it more than ever, thanks to social media, people are really fixated on nostalgia, do you remember the back in the day? Da, 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 da. I think nostalgia is good for like little little footnotes and stuff like that. For example, the Ripper 23 record cover, that's nostalgia, but there was a kind of a point that we were pushing. It wasn't nostalgia for the sake of nostalgia, just because our waistlines were slimmer or whatever, or we had more hair. Not that kind of, looking back going, oh, it was better back in the day. Well, it wasn't always better back in the day, because, back in the day, it was a lot more violent, and there were more car accidents with, less safer cars and stuff like that. So it wasn't always better. But we're looking forward to evolving and changing and things like that all the time. And who knows what the next album's going to sound like. Actually, I know what the next album's going to sound like. Its next album's going to be fantastic. We're already writing songs for it.
Fantastic. That is fantastic. Now, we knew that the Most Australian Band Ever documentary was coming out, and then we knew the project was cancelled, and we know Kesh left the band and why. But I haven't actually heard much about how you got from A to C to it being completely canned and none of it being salvageable, and we're never going to see it. That's a big step. Why? How? What happened?
Well, that's not true. The project was never cancelled,
Okay.
Stephen. What had happened was Jonathan Sakura, the filmmaker, needed to raise money to go ahead with the project, and so he did one of those GoFundMe things through SBS, and SBS, the station, got right behind it and helped us raise $60,000. And when whatever happened with the allegations and whatnot happened with our former member Kesh, the right thing to do was to give all the money back. So all the money went back to people who had donated, every cent. It didn't mean the project stopped. It meant that all the money that Jonathan needed to pay for things like filming and editing and all that kind of stuff disappeared. All 60,000 or whatever it was, and so what we needed was somebody with a little bit of wealth who liked underground music to come and fund it, and that person's come through, and so that person is now funding it, and the movie will be coming out.
Fantastic.
But the weird thing is, the movie is going to be even more fascinating than ever, because it involves Tim Rogers, who originally was interviewed in the original documentary movie as a fan, because he was an Uber fan. Now he goes from being an Uber fan to being the lead singer, the really good, dynamic, charismatic lead singer of the band. So there is actually a real twist in the plot. And so the movie is actually going to be even more fascinating. And so there's some kind of a really good story to come out of something that was bad that happened to the band.
Okay. Welcome back. We're talking to Ray from the Hard-ons, and in the previous episode, if you're listening, or a few seconds ago if you're watching, he told us that the film, which was called Hard-ons, the Most Australian Band Ever documentary, is now being made. It was on the shelf for a little bit, but it's back off the shelf and being made. Now, what you said, it's very interesting now, because Tim Rogers was interviewed as a fan, and now he's a member of the band. I guess as a documentary filmmaker, you would have a tendency, or you would have people wanting you to also address the Me Too thing and all the stuff around the departure of your former member, Kesh, that would become part of the film now. Is that the case? Does it become part of the film?
Yes, it does. I mean, they were questions that the filmmaker posed to us and asked us to respectfully answer those big questions. And they were, we had to answer them in a truthful but respectful way to the parties that were involved. what we had to do was basically explain. I guess we just have to explain our side of the story and what we went through, and that's what we did. And it was pretty painful to live through, because the main thing was that none of the band members were actually present when any of that stuff happened, and so we don't know. And when one person's saying one thing and the other person's saying another, well, the only thing we can do is, I mean, Steve, it was just really, really, really difficult, and yeah, it was one of those things. Yeah, it's even now I think about it, it's not something I like to think about, because they're pretty painful times. And you got to remember, at the time, the Hard-ons, a lot of people loved the Hard-ons, because you probably remember the 80s, Steve, when people like Jello Biafra were in trouble in the States by the PMRC, and the big enemy for anyone in a band was, in a punk band, was censorship. You know, you had bands like Butthole Surfers, the Hard-ons, having their records confiscated along with the Dead Kennedys at places like Rocking Horse Records in Queensland, and Hard-ons records being sold in brown paper bags in Queensland, and the big enemies at the time seemed to be censorship. So the time was right for a band like the Hard-ons to just go gung-ho and fearlessly, you know, try and offend as many people as possible. You know, times have completely changed, and there's absolutely no way in the world. I mean, contextually speaking, we're talking about context here. So, contextually speaking, would the 18-year-old me come around now and do what I did in the way of, you know, setting up band meetings where we could go, who haven't we offended? How can we offend more people? What can we say or do to annoy more people? You know, we just wouldn't do that now, you know, because not only are people's sensibilities different, and you've got things like Steve Albini from Big Black saying, I would never form a band called Rape Man ever again, you know, and he kind of regrets the offense that the term caused, you know. You know, I'm in a similar position with the Hard-ons. It's like, well, yeah, well, we went out of our way to offend people, but you can say till the face is blue that it was ironic and it was just being used to fight censorship and that kind of stuff, but it just wouldn't wash now. You know, you couldn't do that. So no, I wouldn't call a band the Hard-ons or anything like that, maybe in this day and age. But then again, you can't fixate on the past and look back and just apologize nonstop for having sexist lyrics or whatever, you know what I mean? So times are different, and when that thing with our former member happened, it was hard to try and face up to people who were screaming at us and accusing us of you know, whatever. And the only thing we could say was like, I wasn't there. I wasn't there. You know, I mean, I wasn't there. I mean, it was hard to deal with, Steve.
You've grappled with the biggest issue in popular culture today as a guy who had to decide the lineup, and presumably it's cost you a friendship, I would assume, or it certainly affected a friendship. And yeah, I don't know. Is there anything you can say you've learned from it, or that, you know, is there anything, any lessons?
No, I think you know, Kesh probably wouldn't want me to say this, but I probably would have sacked him from the band a lot earlier. But not for any other reason than he wasn't exactly pulling his weight in the band either. You know, in terms of his role as a lead singer. So we broke up the Hard-ons because I didn't like the way he was, his attitude towards the whole attitude towards playing in a band, it was different to me and Blackie. So that was the main reason we broke up. And those things started to come back to the fore. You know, I mean, this is somebody that I knew when we were in primary school. So, you know, when somebody isn't in the Hard-ons for that long, you know, say 14 years he wasn't in the Hard-ons, and in that time, you look at his musical career and he hasn't done anything. You think it's a shame, because a guy is very talented. He can drum, he can play piano, he can play guitar, he can do a lot of things. Me and Blackie thought that we could actually unlock some of his talents, and because it was a shame that he wasn't being heard. And but then, you know, a couple of years after rejoining the band, you just realize, wow, it's a lot more than that. It's, you know, that person has to really want to be in the band, really want to be in the band. And you know, the big questions have to be asked, and Kesh is somebody who does not ask big questions about anything. So he'd be the first one to tell you he can't, you know, he can't ask those big questions. He's not very good at metaphysics, Steve. You know, you ask him, why are you in a band? He couldn't tell you. So, you know, and that's not being disrespectful. And the answer always has to be, because I really like being creative and I'll do anything to make sure that the band sounds good. And if you can answer it that way, then yeah, then that's the person you want to be in a band with. And without being too disrespectful to Kesh, Tim Rogers is a person who says, I really want to be in this band because I like the music and I really want to see the band succeed on stage and on record. That's the answer that you want to hear.